as your lead-in to Spirit. Arguably, all the albums that came after Construction Time Again ditched most of the politics. And whereas Depeche Mode brought me to them, right? I was first drawn to Depeche Mode because of hearing Shake the Disease and the relationship aspect of the song. You know, it was Construction Time Again that was one of those early records that really sucked me in and got me into the band. And this was at a time when I was, this is back in 88, right? This was a time when I wasn't really politically inclined. I didn't follow politics or the state of the world for the most part, but I loved the music. And it exposed me to politics and to different viewpoints on the world. I wouldn't say it crafted my viewpoints by any stretch of the imagination, but it certainly had an impact in sort of opening my eyes a bit through this music. So it wasn't just the love, sex, and tears part of it, right? The pain and suffering in various tempos, but it was also the fact that this music drew me in because I liked it so much. But it was also telling me about the opinion of this band and the state of the world and what was going on. And so, I don't want to say seductive in that regard, but, it was providing me a bit of an education at a time when I wasn't paying attention to these things. And so I would say for those, and I'm really talking to myself, that loves Depeche Mode because of the relatability of the lyrics and the fact that they talk about relationships and life and love. I would argue that, well, you know what? Maybe it's time for a new Depeche Mode record that takes us a bit of a departure from that and takes us back to a time of Construction Time Again where they did talk politics. Look, truth be told, that's what we're getting. But for me, in wanting to really love this album, that's how I'm going to kind of look at it. I'm going to frame it as, you know what, the band's done this before, but it's been a long, long time, and I liked it when they did before. And I may not even agree. I don't agree with a lot of what they said, politically speaking, on Construction Time Again, and I know I'm not going to agree with much of what they may or may not say on Spirit, but that doesn't mean I still can't appreciate it. Doesn't mean that I still can't like the music. I love some of these tracks on Construction Time Again, even though it's really kind of far away from where I stand on a political standpoint. All right, let's get back to this review. Let's see. And then, however, the song suggests that we can talk about revolution, where Where's the Revolution basically tells us it's the only way forward. Construction Time Again's naive socialism is replaced by an aggressive notion of destroying everything because we've made a mess of it all. The album's opener, Going Backwards, sets the tone for the record, a strong start, their strongest opener since A Pain That I'm Used To. Right? The production here immediately strikes you. James Ford has given the band more room than Ben Hillier, and the smothered feel of the last few albums is gone. This is a very good thing. Okay? Then he moves on to The Worst Crime, the first Dave Gahan pen track. He says, being blunt, I prefer Martin's songwriting to Dave's, but partly through poor research on my part, I didn't realize this was a Dave-penned track at first, as the lyrics continue the doomy theme. And he goes on to say that it has some kinship to Dave's Soul Savers work, but he says that it's a good Dave track, and that it's miles away from Hole to Feed, let's put it that way, which I am happy with, because I was not a fan of Hole to Feed from Sounds of the Universe. He says the opening trio of songs are finished off by the superb Scum. Full marks for the song title and the lyrics. They brought to mind Nine Inch Nails' glorious downward spiral for me, albeit shorn of self-loathing. It's as aggressive as Depeche Mode has ever sounded, and I love that. Also, the music is spot on. It opens with the modular synth fest we've heard at the press conference, but quickly goes nuts. Think Delta Machine's My Little Universe getting drunk, meeting some bad people, and going to an underground club. If you can picture that, you're getting there. This is a great song. Then he moves on to You Move, written by both Dave and Martin. Looking forward to this one. Didn't disappoint. Once you hear the lyrics, I like the way you move. I like the way you move me. You Move For Me Tonight. And the sleazy electronics of the track, it becomes clear, or at least I think it becomes clear, that it's words by Dave and music by Martin. Some of the synth parts here sound huge and are pretty experimental for a band who are about to straddle the Globe's stadia and arenas for the next 12 months. One section sounds, he says it matches the wonderful distorted take on Kraftwerk. The melody is almost pure pop in the chorus, too, with that juxtaposing with Martin's music perfectly. If Dave had sung over a VCMG track, this would have been it. Then he talks about Cover Me, another Dave track, which veers slightly towards Soul Savers again, though the last couple of minutes turn into a gorgeous Kraftwerk-like synth riot somewhere between Autobahn and the Man Machine. He says slide guitar is prevalent here. The song is a ballad-type effort, but again, it's a good Dave track. Not the strongest not on the album, but not the weakest. What follows next is the Martin song Eternal. It's a short love song, perhaps written for his children, and it's gorgeous. It's dark and powerful with apocalyptic gloom throughout, tempered by the song's message of eternal love. And the one thing that he points out here is that it seems as if Martin Gore has really gone back to his old style of singing. He says Martin's actually singing like Martin and not bothering with any of the vibrato that's taken the edge of some of his recent album tracks. And he goes on to say, that's important for me. Plus, the general magic of the track makes it Martin's best lead song since Home. He goes on to say, it reminds you of the days of It Doesn't Matter To or I Want You Now, and I don't think anyone will have an issue with that. I know that I certainly won't have an issue with that. Dave returns to songwriting duties with Poison Heart, another track that was previewed in Milan. This is in a Delta Machine Soul Savers way, but James Ford keeps it interesting. It has charm too, and I think it's very much a grower that will certainly work live. So Much Love returns to the pop side of things, lightens the mood again with expressions of love opposed to expressions of angst. The melody and persistent hammering drum machines remind me of Some Great Reward in a general sense, which can be a good thing. I do kind of worry about live drums taking the edge off that somewhat, but this might be this record's broken in the sense that it's a pop song that they entirely ignore when they compile set lists. Yeah, I couldn't believe they didn't play Broken on the Delta Machine tour. That was a shock to me. He says, so far in the album it holds your attention. And then he goes on to say that apparently James Ford had wanted a 10-track album, which I thought was really interesting because I had always been one going into certainly Songs of Faith and Devotion after Music for the Masses. Well, actually, all the ones before that. Construction Time Again, Some Great Reward, Music for the Masses, not Black Celebration so much. But certainly Violator I thought was too short. I wanted more. But I also think that's a bit of the beauty of Violator. They could have included Happiest Girl and Sea of Sin on there, but you know what? They would have been out of place and it would have been too much. And what he argues here is that perhaps they should have stuck with 10 songs, but the band insisted that they added 2 more tracks, and that was Poor Man and No More, This Is the Last Time. And he goes on to say these 2 songs are a bit unnecessary. Perhaps losing Poor Man and a Dave Gone track might have made it a better, tighter record. He says Poor Man is sonically one push of the gloomy blues bottom too many. Lyrically, we're back in the realms of Construction Time Again, echoing Everything Counts. He goes on to say, No More, This Is the Last Time, has a really cool dark electronic feel throughout, but it feels a bit unfinished, a chance to create something special missed. And that reminds me a bit of like Angel from Delta Machine. Angel, and I think I've mentioned this before. Angel, to me, I thought when we first heard it in the preview before the album came out with the announcement of the album, I thought that was a demo track, and I was a little bit disappointed they didn't add more to it when the album came out. Now he says, we end uniquely for a Depeche Mode album on a Martin Gore lead vocal. And what an ending. Fail returns us to the lyrical fatalism of the opening quartet of songs, but it's done with a great degree of resigned black humor. A black celebration, if you like. Martin, again, mercifully vibrato-free, reminds us that we're hopeless, our souls are corrupt, our minds are messed up, before adding uniquely, oh, we're effed. and I want to keep this a family podcast, so I'm not going to say the word, but I think that's the first time we've ever heard that harsh of a curse word on a Depeche Mode record. He's like, some people had issue with this, but I love it. Lyrics aside, Fail is a wonderful piece of dark electronics, and the lyrics add to its glorious feel. The song builds through Martin reminding us of more of our bad points before ending "Oh, we failed." The synths suddenly start glittering like stars, sparkling as Martin boards his escape ship and heads off, leaving us to inhabit the world we've made for ourselves, where buffoons, he says, such as Trump, rule the roost. Perhaps we should all be listening to Depeche Mode after all. So he wraps up with this. Depeche Mode is Spirit is a very good album. It's not immediate. It's as downbeat as any Depeche record has ever been, and it's going to annoy fans looking for a black violation of devotional ultras. It was never going to be one of their era-defining albums, as bands at this stage rarely come up with that sort of thing. What Depeche Mode have done with Spirit, however, is continue to push themselves, refuse to rest on their laurels, and produce an album that is relevant both sonically and lyrically, and that is perhaps more than most people expected. Perverse with this record, as there is a lot to love here. Excuse me, I'm sorry, not perverse. I'm stuck in the Depeche mood. Persevere with this record, as there's a lot to love here. A revolution? No. But it's an evolution, and I am on board. You know, it's the one thing that Depeche Mode has done, and it's different than when... You know, it's obviously different than those early records, but those early records all kind of had a different feel. Sure, there was some flow from Construction Time Again going into Some Great Reward, but when you move off of that, really, you know, apart from a few common threads here and there really was, you know, some deviation. The albums do really stand on their own, and I know that I would love to see a 2017 version of a Violator. But as I've said, and as I'll continue to say on these podcasts, on these shows, you know, we have that. We have Violator. We have Songs of Faith and Devotion. I think there are certain aesthetic things that they could stand to lose a bit of those blues and some of the guitar work. But when you look at, you know, the last few records, when you look at, you know, Playing the Angel and Sounds of the Universe and Delta Machine, you know, they are very different. And it sounds like this is going to be very different. And I'm good with that. It's a catalog of albums for a reason. You know, they don't go away. And so while we may want to desire, I may want to desire to have more Songs of Faith and Devotion type songs, I've got Songs of Faith and Devotion, man. So if we're going to get something brand new and something fresh that this band does, I am absolutely 100% on board with that. Now, I keep hearing... And this is where I'm looking at the clock here. I got just enough time. Let me look at my list. Have I gone through everything? Yeah, for the most part, I've gone through everything that I wanted to talk about. So I have just enough time to squeak in a couple of things that I promised. Everything Counts was probably, when I first discovered Depeche Mode, you know, one of my favorite songs. It's up there. But it's one of the ones they almost play on, they play almost on every tour. It's certainly, to me... in establishing the band, when you do People Are People, which I was never a huge fan of, or Master and Servant, which I also was never a huge fan of. I like those songs, but, you know, I prefer the other songs on the albums over those. You know, but People Are People, Master and Servant, you know, Everything Counts, Strange Love, Behind the Wheel, you know, those things, you know, these were the establishing songs. And certainly Everything Counts early on was, you know, one of their main establishing songs. And yet, again, going back to the lyrical side of things, it's one of their more diverse songs lyrically because of the content of the lyrics. It's not a strange love, and it's not a song about love at all, really. And a lot of people have been equating Everything Counts to some of the lyrical content from Spirit. But it got me thinking. With the announcement of the North American tour dates, I was thinking, you know, which is the best live version that the band has ever done of Everything Counts? And I don't know about you, but for me, the best live version that they ever did was on the World Violation Tour. That whole tour The tracks and the way they remixed them was absolutely spectacular. So here you go, live from Mountain View, California, on the World Violation Tour.